Hi, ladies. Happy Monday. I'm going to wait a little bit before we get going to let some of you trickle in. I know a few of you wanted to be here but couldn't make it. So if you're catching the replay, hello. I'm glad you're able to join us, and feel free to either leave comments if you're watching the replay, or you can also direct message me if you have specific comments or questions. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Hey, Hannah. I had a super chill weekend. It was like the epitome of balance. Saturday was like a super lazy day, a lot of movies. I think I worked out in the afternoon, but pretty much just stayed in. And then yesterday was like a day of hiking, breath work, socializing. So it was a perfect balanced weekend. So I hope you guys all had a great weekend and are enjoying the change in seasons here if you're in DC. Hi, Hannah. Thanks for joining. I'm going to wait just a little bit longer. And like I said, I know several of you will be tuning in on the live stream. So Hannah, since you're on here, if you can hear me, I know you already, you have a business already. So I'd love to hear what you'd like to get out of this session tonight. Okay. Well, I'm going to start diving in, and please say hi as you're coming in. And I'm really excited to be sharing this topic with all of you. I had shared a poll a few weeks ago to kind of get a sense of those of you in the group who are business owners, who are thinking about starting a business, as I'm really excited to, in my business, oh my God, how many times can you say the word business? In my business, in my coaching, I've been working with a lot more women who want to just go all in on their dreams and start their businesses. And so I've been really feeling inspired to share more content in alignment with that. And it's really exciting to see that all of you are really interested in moving in this direction. Not that we won't share content that's relevant for a corporate audience in this group, but there will be a lot more business-oriented content. So I'm excited to talk about this topic tonight, which is, should you start a business? And Hannah, just reading what you're sharing, you need a pep talk for sure tonight. Want to find the motivation to keep moving forward. I know you have two businesses, and having a business, it is incredibly rewarding. And as Hannah is alluding to, there are definitely challenges that come along with it, but that does not mean that it's not worth it. In a way, I would say, and Hannah, I'm sure you'll agree, the challenges in your business are what make you grow and take you to a whole other level. So nothing bad about challenges. Regarding the topic tonight, a question that I help a lot of my clients with and a lot of women at my workshops is the question, should I start a business? Is this right for me? What's this all about? My quick answer to that is, if you feel like this gut feeling to start a business, yeah, go start that business. Okay, live is over. Start your business. But what we're going to focus on for our session today is, a lot of times we get that instinct, we get curious, should I start a business? But then we talk ourselves out of it before we even take those steps forward, because of all these limitations that we have for ourselves, but also these misconceptions about what it's like to run a business. And that's what I want to look at tonight. As I was putting the content together with this, we were probably going to break this up into different parts, because there's so much to talk about with starting a business, and I don't want to overwhelm everyone with too much information. So tonight I really want to focus on, what are those blocks that come up when we're thinking about starting a business and that kind of stop us from taking action. And these blocks, I will say, I know Hannah, you're on here, even if you have a business and even if you're in corporate, you'll still be able to relate to these. And for those of you who are tuning in on the replay, a great question to ask yourself is, why are you stuck on this question? right? Because typically with things, it's a yes or a no. But a lot of times with these big decisions, with clarity, we don't know the answer. And take some time to reflect. Why is this a hard question for you to answer? Should you start a business? What's that part of you that says yes? What is that part of you saying? And what's that part of you that's saying no? And look at those two perspectives and look at, all those things that are coming up when you're questioning yourself, because should I start this business? What's all the commentary? Because a lot of times what keeps us stuck and unclear is all of that mind chatter. Sarah, thank you for joining. And Hannah, as I'm talking about this, I know you've already made the decision. You already have 2 businesses, but I'm sure you can probably relate to this as kind of like the chatter that's going on when deciding, okay, do I start a business? Do I stay in corporate? Do I start a side hustle? Like, what does this look like? I want to give a few examples before we get into the things that hold us back from going all in and starting a business, but some things to look out for that I've noticed with my clients, and that are often, it's like, okay, this is a sign to start a business. First, something that I've seen a lot lately is women saying, and men as well, actually, not just women, men saying, okay, I don't want to be in my current job. They're applying for different jobs, they're going to interviews, and there's just a disconnect. And I personally can relate to this. And many of you have heard my story in these different lives when I transitioned from working in nonprofits to full-time, becoming a full-time business owner. In that time in between, so I was laid off from my nonprofit job, which was the best gift ever, but I was interviewing for jobs. And during that time period, I was interviewing for jobs that they should have been perfect. They were more money than my old job. They had coaching. They had all of this, like everything I should have wanted. But I'm just sitting in these interviews. It's like you could have offered me a freaking smoothie and I would have been more excited. There was just a disconnect. It was like trying to put a round peg in a square hole. And if you can relate to what I'm saying now, it's time to start thinking out of the box. We talk a lot about thinking out of the box, but if you're applying for jobs and it's like, or you're in a corporate role and it feels like you're doing all the right things to switch things up, but there's just really a big thing that's off, and it's not the money, it's not that you're not using your strengths, it's just like the whole way of operating, that's a sign to start looking into entrepreneurship. And again, for me, I'm speaking from myself. For me, it was just like the light bulb went off. And that's what made me, I stopped the interview process and then I went all in with my business, because it was just like, okay, trying to it's just not aligning. And that's something to keep in mind. Some other general things to think about, like if you're meant for business ownership. And again, this isn't all encompassing. These are just things that I observe with my clients. So you're self-motivated. That can go, I'm not saying if you're not self-motivated, you will be successful as a business owner, but if you are driven by your own goals and your own dreams, that's a great sign that you're meant for business ownership. If you're in a corporate role and you're just like, oh my God, I don't understand why things are so slow, why there's so much bureaucracy, you just want to like get things done, and you think you want to innovate, and it feels almost counterintuitive to do the things the way they're done in your company, that's a sign that business ownership is for you. You want the freedom to create. A big thing for me, to go back to myself, in deciding to become a business owner was I didn't want to coach internally anywhere, because I wanted to have the full freedom to be able to fully serve my clients in the way that I could best serve them. Like for me, again, this is not a diss to any coaches who work corporate or anything like that. I'm just speaking from my own personal preference, and to kind of give you a sense of like what a business owner perspective may sound like. I didn't want any limitations over what I was creating, how I was coaching. I just wanted that pure freedom, because I felt that I can make the best impact that way. If freedom is one of your top 5 values, something to look out for. Most of my clients who switch to entrepreneurship or are business owners, freedom is up there. Keep that in mind. And let's say you have a big vision, or maybe you're not completely clear on what that vision is. It's just like you feel like you're meant for more, and you're just feeling bogged down in a corporate or nonprofit environment. That's also a big sign. I find the best thing to listen for is that gut instinct. I went into nonprofit work because I wanted to make that impact. And there were so many things that made nonprofits not a fit for me. That's a whole other session and a half. All the reasons why it wasn't a fit for me, but I really wasn't able to make the impact that I wanted. I began to see how my strengths could be best used to serve others in, a coaching capacity to business ownership. And oh my goodness, I just forgot my third reason why it wasn't a fit. It was just the overall dysfunction, just the way things were run. I felt like it was limiting and it wasn't feeding my soul in the way that I thought it was. So going back to the gut instinct, a lot of times you just have that feeling that you're meant for more, and listening to that and giving that part of you a voice. We're often told that success looks a certain way. White picket fence, get that corporate job, work your way to the top. Safe, you want safety and security. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. However, sometimes we think we're wrong for wanting something different. And again, when I was in my old job, I remember looking around and being like, is there something wrong with me? Like, why am I not happy with 15 vacation days? Like, I was like, there's something wrong with me. I really did. Like, why am I not happy with this? Like, my boss is nice. Like, I should be happy. So again, I'm throwing in my own stories because if you can relate to what I'm saying, the ding, 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 that should be going off, that it's a sign that you should be a business owner. So again, it can feel tough to be wanting to go in this direction where we've been told what success should look like. Pause here. I know we have one on the live, which is Hannah. I'm so glad you're tuning in. And any questions also, I want to pause. For those of you who are catching the replay, you can add your comments and your questions and comments in here. So just pause for a minute. And Hannah, if you have anything you want to add, please feel free to chirp in. Okay, yes, you probably agree with what I'm saying. So what I want to focus, like I said, we're going to break this up in parts. This part today is going to be primarily focused on those blocks, those things that get in our way when we're thinking about entrepreneurship. Like maybe we have that pull, that gut instinct, and then our head chirps in and it says, oh, that's not safe, it's not secure, you can it goes on and on and on. So I want to talk about the most common objections and fear-based blocks that come up when you're considering if you should start a business. First, security. Having a business isn't secure. It's a risk. How do I know if it's going to work out? First things first, security and certainty, those are illusions. One example, for those of you who are in DC, remember last year, we had the government shutdown, and the government's supposed to be the securest place to work. But however long that lasted, people were without their paychecks. So example one there. Second, is receiving a paycheck from a company, like when you think about it, like if you're defining security as like having a corporate job where a company's paying you, you're getting your deposit in your bank account each week. But is that really secure? Because you're dependent. And again, nothing wrong with corporate. I'm just trying to bust through the security mindset. The business ownership isn't security mindset here, but you're dependent on an external entity to put money in your account each month and pay your bills. What happens if there's a layoff? Then you have to go through this, you have to pull out your resume. You have to go through this interviewing process and go find another job to do the same thing. Business ownership, you learn how to create your own paycheck. You learn how to create your own paycheck. I want to emphasize that. And yes, the journey to get to that isn't as easy. It's not instant gratification. We get the job, sign the bill, the paycheck starts coming in. No, you have to build to get there, yes. But imagine, like these skills that you get from becoming a business owner, you learn how to sell, how to market, the relationships you build. Even if you were to start another business, you can take those skills with you. You could take those skills if you wanted to get a corporate job. So those are my first thoughts on the security thing. And Hannah, I'm just seeing what you're saying. The doubt and fear gets so loud even when you have a business already. Yes, and for my business owners tuning in, it's like, and I say this to my clients because I go through it too. It's your business. It is almost like an extension of you, because there isn't that like, okay, I work for this company, they put the paycheck in, and yes, like our identity can get caught up there, but it can be a different level with your business. So I'm glad you're saying that, Hannah. So when starting a business, and even when you have a business, dealing with doubt and fear is perfectly normal. So with the security, like I'm saying here, security, don't let the belief of security existing in a corporate job stop you from pursuing a business. True security and safety, it comes from within. How this got assigned like externally, like I don't know. In our society, we assign way too much externally. Happiness is an external thing, fulfillment. All of that truly, truly, truly comes from within. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Because you're probably like, what does that mean? It comes from within. I'll get to that in a second. And then second, with the risk perspective, and I said this on the Facebook Live a couple weeks ago. Yes, there is a risk in going for the business. What's the risk in not doing it though? What's the risk in staying in that job that is just mediocre and ignoring those gut feelings that you are meant for more? Whew. I don't know what risk you would rather take, but for me, it was taking that step forward and risking that versus risking being stuck in my soul-sucking job. So something to think about. A potential solution. So the security work, this is ongoing because we've been trained, again, like I was saying earlier, we've been trained to think that success is the white picket fence, safe, secure job. So we've been trained to think that security comes from out there. Look at what have you learned about security. So sometimes I see this with my clients as well. They can be more, depending on what their upbringing is with security, they can be more like have more of a charge around it. For example, my family is very supportive of my decision to become a business owner. My grandfather was a business owner, my uncle, my dad has a private practice as an attorney. So I had good examples of it growing up, but sometimes we may have grown up in families where someone started a business and they failed, or like you had one parent who was safe and secure and provided, the other parent was in la la land. So you learned certain things about security. So look at that and understand how those beliefs that you've learned are creating this perspective on security and risk. Remember, you can always unlearn those. Also look at the question, how do you outsource your safety and security in your life? Repeat that. How do you outsource your safety and security in your life? Rather than it being an inside job, where are you assigning things outside of you as more powerful than you to give you that security and safety? And no judgment here. It's sometimes can be so innocent and so unconscious, but look at what is causing you to do that. Another approach to take is what is your definition of security? So take out a fear-based definition, but if you were to look at it honestly, how do you define security? What does that look like? And how can you create security while also taking steps towards creating your business? Big thing here. No one's saying quit your job today and just start up a business tomorrow. So looking at, okay, how can you create that security for yourself while also taking steps towards starting your business? I'm gonna pause there. Security and risk, just to give people time, just give you some time to process that. Whew. Okay. Next on my list here is I'm not ready. When am I going to feel ready? I'm not ready to start. This can, not always, but a lot of times can be rooted in perfectionism, because we feel like we want it to be perfect when we start. And you've probably heard this before, but perfection is the enemy of progress. And it's also the enemy of true creativity and innovation, because perfection is coming from fear, and we can't fully access our creativity when we're operating from fear. So keep that in mind. Next, what's ready? How will you know when you're ready? Sometimes that can just call yourself out. Like, when will you be ready? How will you know? Perhaps you need more information to become ready. What do you need to learn to feel ready? I say this cautiously though, because sometimes we get caught up into over downloading content, and we're just over consuming, because we're like, oh, once I learn this, I'll be ready. So don't do that. I'm just saying sometimes maybe there is some information or something you need to do in order to feel ready. I also want to say this for everyone. A lot of times we don't feel ready because it feels really, we feel uncomfortable. It's safe to feel uncomfortable. It's totally okay to feel uncomfortable and to take action even in that discomfort. Doesn't say anything about you. Uncomfortable doesn't mean you're not ready. It just means you're doing something that's different, new, and that's a sign of growth. Oh, Hannah, I think your comments are coming in delayed for some reason. It does this to me on here. Sorry, I got distracted again. But Hannah, I like that you like defining what security means to you. Okay, back to what I'm saying. Hi, Elena. It is safe to feel uncomfortable. And I want you to allow that to sink in. This came up in a client session lately that I had recently. And sometimes when we feel what we classify as negative emotions, we try to push them and we get scared, and it causes us not to take action, but really just embracing the emotions for what they are and taking action regardless. The solution for not feeling ready is take action regardless, because you're never yes, you can define what ready feels like, but are we ever going to feel ready? I do things in my business all the time that I don't feel ready to do yet. When I first started coaching, I didn't feel ready. When I did my first group program, I did not feel ready. It's just part of life. So take action regardless. But what to do here is break down those actions into smaller steps. You don't necessarily have to do this big, huge goal. Break down your goal. I've talked about leaping on here before. If you have a big goal, like maybe it is to launch like a group program in my example. So a leap for me might be to launch a pilot workshop with similar content to get feedback from people who are participating and to get me into action. But action is so important, and you want to focus on that, the courage over confidence, because it takes courage to act, and confidence comes from seeing those results. So that's, I'm not ready, kind of busting through that block. Any questions from my ladies who are present here, or comments? Okay. I know the comments get delayed, so I'm just gonna give it a little more time, and especially for those of you who are catching the replay, you can also add any of your questions in here. Hey, Alicia, thanks for joining. It's a good moment to join because we're just pausing. Okay. The next block that gets in our way of starting our businesses and going all in, probably guess what it is. It's something that it's probably like, I guess all of these are like the killer of dreams, but this one is the fear of failure. What if I don't succeed? And whenever I'm coaching someone, yay, Alicia, I'm so glad you're here. Whenever I'm coaching someone around this, I always go, okay, I'm like, so what's the worst case scenario? You could do this, you could self-coach yourself. Okay, what is this worst case scenario? And there's typically two types of answers. I'm laughing because it's funny how we work as humans. So one is like there's a physical fear. Like people are concerned, like, oh my God, I'm not gonna have any money. God forbid, I'm gonna be homeless on the street. So that's one. The other is just, I can't handle failure. Like it's more emotional. So there's two different approaches for each of those. The first, the homeless on the street version, I like to go that, allow yourself to go there, worst case scenario, but then throw in the logic. Like, and I actually learned from a mentor coach of mine. When she went full-time with her business, that was her fear. And she actually challenged it. She was like, okay, so how likely is it that we're going to be home? My kids and me and my husband will be homeless on the street. She was like, absolutely not. I have family and friends that would take us in. Like, that's insane. So she cut through it there. Second, she's like, I can get a job. Like I could work at freaking McDonald's, a retailer. Like, okay, I'll be able to provide for my family. And she kind of worked her way back up and was able to put those fears into place. So if you're someone who's having those types of fears, that's a good way to like actually plan, like, okay, if this happened, what would I do in that situation? On the other hand, there is the failure where it's like, more like emotional, and a lot of times it's because we assign failure with us not being good enough or worthy in some way. So if you're afraid of failure, ask yourself, what does failing mean about you? Because it's not failure that's actually scary. Because someone might look at failure and be like, whatever, that doesn't bother me. So failure in itself, again, not outsourcing your power. Failure in itself is not scary. It's the meaning that you're assigning to it if you were to fail. So look at that. What is it? Why is failure holding you back? And looking at what it might mean about you. And like I said, a lot of times it's that inner critic chirps up and it's like, if you fail, then you're not really good enough. You're not worthy. Who do you think you are? So paying attention to that. What I have to say about failure is, if you're going to go in business, or if you want to be successful, if you want to create a life and work beyond your wildest dreams, accept that failure is part of the process. Success isn't here and failure isn't here. They're not, no. They're not opposite ends. Failure is part of what leads to success. And we are starting to talk about this more, right? Like, at events, I talk about failing forward, which is great. And of course, there are different types of failures. That's a whole other topic. Like, I'm not saying go out blindly and fail, right? Again, like quitting your job today, just like, oh, there's no, like Krista said, just start a business tomorrow. Don't do that. But I mean, like, failure, like let's say you launch a program, it doesn't go the way you want. You're struggling to get clients at first, you're failing, you're getting rejected. There's stuff to learn in that. And that's part of the process. So should you go into business for yourself and failure's holding you back, look at failure, sit it down and say, we're going to be best friends. How are we going to become friends? Because it's going to be part of the process. And I know as a business owner, like I was just saying this, I was teaching a workshop Friday night. And I realize sometimes you see me here like teaching this. I want you all to know that I have failed. I have experienced rejection. I have had tough times, like where I doubt myself. I still experience doubt and failure, and there will be more failure. So I just want to be upfront about that, and that it's part of the process, and it's okay. And I actually think just talking about it just like this, like, is helpful. And I know with some of my friends who are business owners, sometimes just being like talking about these things, it's great because it's normal. What if we could love failure? And I love what the ladies are saying here. Elena, thank you. I love that you like the worst case scenario. Yes, incorporating failure into the process. And Elena, I love what you're saying too. You've also run into moments of failure, moments of success in your business. Yes. And you're welcome, Joe. Thanks for tuning in. Yes, Elena, you have a business too. I'm so glad you're saying it. And I know, Elena, I was saying, Elena's my cousin, by the way. I can say this, but Elena, I was talking about our grandfather who was a successful business owner, built his way up. I know that he had failures too in the process. And he's someone that I idolize, even though we never met him. That, again, another story for another day. I'll start getting emotional here. But even my father, who's a successful business owner, he's failed. I know my mentors who are beyond successful business owners have failed. So it's good to to really put it out there. And you may be wondering, okay, so how to make friends with failure? And it first starts with looking at your relationship with it. So I said earlier, what's the meaning that you assign to failure? Like, is it like, oh, I'm not good enough if I fail, or whatever that might be? Looking at where did you learn that from? And this is typically your inner critic that's speaking. So, your inner critic that's speaking. So it's trying to protect you in some way, right? It's because if you don't fail, if you don't fail, then you don't have to feel not good enough. So you see how it's trying to protect you? So looking at this on a deeper level and learning how to dialogue with your inner critic, and even though it's trying to protect you, you don't need that protection. That protection, like, yes, it can come along the ride with you, but it can't be running the show. And with the not good enough thing, I was talking about this earlier with security. Instead of looking to the world to make us feel secure, cultivating that within, same with good enough. And we've been trained to look to our achievements, our accomplishments, our successes as validation that we're good enough. I want to flip that on the head and say, being successful doesn't make us good enough. I would say that being in our greatness is what makes us successful. Owning our inherent good enoughness, greatness, whatever you want to call it, that leads to success. But success doesn't mean anything about us. So that's the same thing with failure. If you fail, that doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It doesn't mean anything about you, because you are already whole and perfectly perfect. Like, you're already good enough as you are. And I know I'm getting a little woo-woo there, but just really to think about when your mind and your inner critic is playing those tricks on you. Pause here. I know we had some more ladies join. And for those of you who missed earlier, we're going to do this Facebook Live in a few parts. And today we're just focusing on the blocks that get in the way when deciding if we want to start a business. So we talked about security, I'm not ready, and now we just talked about failure. So for those of you who just tuned in, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. I'll pause because I know there's sometimes a delay here. Okay. Late but present. I have so many issues about that idea. Enough. Yeah. And I think, yay, Joe, I'm so happy you're here. Hannah, it's so funny. I had lunch with a friend last week who's also a business owner, and she was saying how with women, on one hand, we feel too much, but then we also feel not enough at the same time. And I feel like for the ladies on here, you probably know exactly what I'm saying. We can feel both too much and not enough at the same time. It's that. And that would be a whole Facebook Live or a workshop, is just looking at the not enough. Because that's something that comes, if you want to get really deep, that comes from shame. And it's something that's universal. It's just not talked about enough, is those feelings of not enough. So thank you for that. Elaine, I run into the feeling like I'm not doing enough, or when I fail, which I tend to internalize. So I really like you saying, doesn't mean that I am not enough. Yes, yes, yes. I'm glad, Elena, I'm so glad you raised that because I forgot to say this earlier, is separating ourselves from our failures and our successes, both of them. Not saying that you don't feel good when you achieve something, but separating our internal worth, like disentangling it. And I've had to do a lot of work over the years of disentangling, from the, like, that just because I failed doesn't mean that I'm a failure. Doesn't mean anything about you. And if you think about it, like, failure, in a way, like, sometimes we fail maybe because there's something we had to learn, or there's something better. Like, sometimes we get so focused on what's right for us, like, oh my God, this has to happen. But sometimes, like, this could be with in a business or even in a relationship. Like, let's say you're dating someone and you're getting really caught up, like, this is the right person for me. Oh my God, maybe they're not. And that's where you kind of shift into that trusting the process of things as well. So failure, sometimes maybe something just wasn't meant for you. It can be as simple as that. Sometimes there's not. We like to overcomplicate things with our minds. And I have found, I will say, my business failures, I've always really learned from them. Like 100%, they've taught me the most and helped me pivot as I've gone along. The last block here, and I know there's even more, and I'd love to hear from everyone who's watching this what you want to hear more about in future sessions. But the last block that stops people from starting a business is really feeling overwhelmed around, okay, where do I start? I don't know how to run a business. Like, what do I do? Am I certified enough? Like, all of this stuff. And I want to say here, this is really, there's not much to say here besides opening yourself up to the fact that you can learn. Like, a lot of this, and what I'm going to do for a second series of part of this, like, should you start a business, I think is the difference between a corporate mindset and an entrepreneurial mindset. Because even though I wasn't in corporate that long, I had to unlearn so much. Like for one example, like, in corporate, we get very dependent on, you get trained on things. And that's not every corporate environment. Sometimes you are just thrown into things, but it's like, learn and get trained before you take action. With entrepreneurship, you got to just kind of jump in there before you're ready, like we were talking about earlier. So sometimes it's, embracing that you're learning as you're going along. And this comes up time and time again with my clients that are starting their businesses. Like, I had a client, she spoke to another business owner, and she was like, yeah, she told me the same thing. You're kind of just figuring it out as you go along. And I saw this funny, like, quote. It was saying, like, part of, like, being a business owner is just Googling everything. And honestly, like, part of it is that, like, not the coaching. Don't worry, guys. I'm not, like, Googling as I coach you. That part I can do, but the business part of it, a lot of times it's like, how do I use Canva? How do I send out, like, a mailing list? So just embracing that. And yes, Elena, what you just said, so much unknown, but just starting and dividing it into baby steps. Yeah. So knowing that you can learn anything. I mean, you learned how to tie your shoes. At some point you didn't know how to do that. So you can learn anything. And I'm going to wrap us up here. I know, Joe, you had asked for me to talk about some of the practical side of things. I'm going to save that for a different one just because there's just so much to go into. So I didn't want to overwhelm everyone. Here is two things to think about. If you are operating from a place of complete confidence and knowing that you will succeed, like, if you knew without a doubt whatever you chose to do, you would succeed in it, what would you do? Would you start a business? That can be a great way to get instant clarity. And shifting from mind to body. The mind is always going to give you excuses and objections as a way to keep you what it perceives as safe from risk and change. There's always going to be that commentary. Like, if you pay attention to your mind long enough, like, same with me, like, I know what my excuses are when I'm doing something uncomfortable, because they're like literally the exact same excuses no matter what it is, like, if it's related to something in my health, my business. So realizing that sometimes it's getting out of here and shifting more intuitively. And even if you don't know getting clear on what your business vision to look like, that's a whole other thing. But again, even if you feel that calling, follow it. Don't keep pushing it away. And that's where I'm going to leave. So I'm going to open up for questions here. And well, actually, no, before I do that, I realized I didn't answer the question, should you start a business? I can't answer that question for you. That is something that it depends on the person. But my intention in this first Facebook Live is to help you see, perhaps, are there some things that you're telling yourself that are maybe making you question if you should start a business? And if you knew you could succeed, would you start that business? And there are ways, like I've been saying like a few times, you don't have to just quit your job today and start tomorrow, but starting it on the side while you have your full-time job, that's totally fine. I was talking to another coach on the phone today, and she was saying how with starting a business, what'd she say, bridge builders and bridge burners. And there are people who like she, for example, like it took her not a while, but for years, she kind of built that bridge and transitioned into entrepreneurship. And then there are bridge burners who are kind of like me. I kind of just went for it. Again, I was in a unique situation though, because I was laid off from my nonprofit job. And I felt like for me, it was just that divine sign to go for it. Even though I would have liked to have been, my ego, my mind would have told me that I'm a bridge builder, but really deep down, I'm a bridge burner. And so I kind of just embraced that. So just so you know, there's so many different ways that you can go about it. Because even if I tell you how I did it, that might not be the right way for you. So keeping that in mind, yes, and Elena, originally definitely start out on the side to ease yourself into it. Yes, yes, yes. And I started on the side too. Remember that I was coaching for at least a year. Not super, I wasn't super intensely building the business, but I had some clients under my belt. I had done some speaking engagements. So just to put that into context with my story as well. I'm going to pause here for any of the ladies, any questions for those of you who are watching live, and anything else for those of you watching live or the replay. What would you want to see as this next parts in this, should you start a business? I was thinking that one thing that could either be in this series or just something to do a live on is the difference between an entrepreneurial mindset versus a corporate mindset. So if that's something that would be interest, I might put it in a poll, but if you want to put in the comments what questions you have, you want me to answer now, or future topics in this area, I would love to hear from you, and I'd be happy to create content around that. And I started on the side, but jump ship too soon. I know sometimes we can't help it. But I would say, Hannah, though, it's worked. I mean, you've learned and grown so much through the process. So I'm just gonna, as you guys are any questions, and I have a little announcement to make, so I'm just gonna wait another minute just to see if you guys have any questions. Okay, cool, Hannah. I think you're saying yes to the corporate versus entrepreneurial mindsets. And again, even for those catching the replay, if you're like, wait, can you talk about this in the next one or this? I have some ideas based on where the conversation went, but really I want to create content that best serves you guys. So don't ever be shy about telling me like, no, can you talk about this more or this more? Because I'll do it. Anything to serve. Yes, Hannah, been a learning experience in so many ways, yes. Alicia, it would be good to reference a checklist and timeline to guide how to start a business and what we should have done already before going full-time. Love that. The one thing I will say before going full-time, I will say that the second part, I love what you're saying. I will say some of that is dependent on the person, but I can help with the checklist and timeline, just things to be thinking about. Deborah, thanks, Alicia. And I realize it's different for everyone depending on what you're doing. I can talk about these things more generally. Like things to think about are, I guess, like health insurance. And you have to determine this goal for yourself. Like, what do you want to have saved before you go full time? Like, and that's the thing. I know this because I work with women and that are doing this, and everyone's so different. Like, I have a client right now, she wanted to pay off her credit card debt, done. And now she has a specific savings goal that she wants to hit before she goes full time with her business in February. And so what we're doing is working on, she knows where she could be to get that from her corporate job, but we're also working on, like, what if we got you X amount of clients? And she just started her business in October. So it really does depend. And I want to say also, health, all these things, they're figure-outable. These things are figure-outable. And sometimes, I want to say this with love, sometimes we get caught up in what's the practical things. It's just fear showing up in a sneaky way. So be careful, everyone watching this. It's good. I'm not saying you want to think about the practical and have a plan, but sometimes we can focus so much, like I want to know all, like getting all of our ducks lined up, that it's just fear pushing things off. So be mindful of that balance between the two as well. And regarding like questions I can't answer are like I'm not an accountant, so I can't, like, I have someone do my taxes. So there are certain things I can't offer, but I can definitely talk about some of the things to be thinking about when you're making a leap, from, even though I'm a bridge burner myself. And I just kind of went for it. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, so one thing which some of you may have seen in the group or on the newsletter, which I am so excited about, is I just opened up applications for the 2020 cohort of the Lead the Life You Love group program. And for the first time, this program is open to women outside of DC. It's conducted largely virtual with 2 in-person intensives. So I am just so excited to be sharing this with all of you guys, because the theme for this program is bringing together a group of women who are ready just to go all in and look at all this stuff that we talked about today, alongside the strategic actions and planning that you can be taking to make your dream a reality. So this is a program, it's from my heart to yours, and I would love to invite all of you to take a look, apply, because it's going to be a fantastic cohort next year. So I will put the link here. And of course, and if you guys have any questions about that, I'd be happy to even get on the phone with you. If you're like, hey, I just want to talk some things, is this right for me? We can absolutely do that. So feel free to get in touch with me. I'm just pulling up the link here for you to take a look. So that's the group program. It's also in the group as well. So with that, I would say that I think we're good for tonight. Any other questions or comments here, ladies? And again, if you have follow-up questions, you can message me or send me an email. I'd be happy to talk to you. Okay. Looks like no more questions. Okay, ladies, thank you all who tuned in. I really enjoyed having you here. And for those of you catching the replay, you know where to find me. And yes, you're welcome, Hannah. Thank you. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye, ladies.